Today we're going to combine probably the two most frustrating packs for The Sims 4, Dine Out and Wedding Stories, to try and make a build. Fortunately for us, these two packs are mostly just frustrating in terms of gameplay, so in build mode, they're not too bad. And my vision for this one is to try to build a really fancy vineyard restaurant in Tartosa. Horse Ranch is the pack that came with all the nectar making stuff, but I actually think that a vineyard would fit really nicely in this world. And going into this, I knew I wanted it to be a vineyard, and I knew that I didn't want it to be a wedding venue, because I've built vineyard wedding venues before. So I was trying to think of other lot types that I could use the vineyard concept on. And that is how I settled on a restaurant. You can set a whole custom menu using all of the fancy wines this way. We can have some like cute little foods to go alongside it. And I just feel like this will be a fun gameplay thing to have in this world. That is assuming we can make the restaurant actually work, because dine out and fun are not usually two words that I would use together. Before we start, there's one last thing I want to show you. This is like the other main inspo for this. In Horse Ranch Debug, there's this grapevine item, and this is what I want to use to fill in the whole exterior. So hopefully you've got a kind of good idea of our plans now. And now let's just jump into the speed build portion so I can walk you through what we've built. And I actually built this live over on my Twitch channel first. It took me a few days to do it, and I built this a few months ago, but kind of forgot to ever post it here on YouTube, so I'm finally posting it now. I also always skim through the build to like cut the speed build part together, but I didn't watch the full thing back before starting to record this voiceover. So there could be some things that are a surprise to both me and you when we're doing this build. I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp of what I've made, but sometimes I surprise myself when I like delete an object that I actually liked and stuff. So we'll see how it goes. So step one, I put down just kind of like a basic shell of a building, and then I added a little bit of a fence in front of it because I knew that I wanted to have the main building, and then I wanted to have kind of a courtyard around it, both in the front and in the back. And then I wanted to fill the entire rest of the lot with all of the grapevines. So this is just me kind of starting to do that process of laying it all out. I was really excited for a second there about the idea of trying to have terrain manipulation, because wouldn't it be cute to have like rolling hills with the grapevines? But then when I tested it, it did not work because these are debug items. And so they don't like adjust to the height of the terrain. In real life, they would kind of like curve up or be on an angle, but in The Sims, everything is completely straight. So if I tried to put it on a hill, it would just be like floating perfectly straight up there. So they didn't really look very good when I tried it, unfortunately. Instead, there are just rows and rows and rows of completely flat grapes. It's also only one object repeated a lot of times. So what I did is I went back through at the end and I flipped a few of them to be backwards just to have a little bit more variation. And then I tried to stagger the placement of them so it would help with the variation as well. I did my best to make it look like it wasn't just the same thing over and over. And if you're seeing that really beautiful gazebo and wondering what that's from, that's actually from the Riviera Retreat Kit. I get asked about that all the time when I use it because I feel like people probably don't buy that kit very often. And also that object is kind of specific, so it's hard to use. And therefore I don't use it very often. And then when I do, it looks like a brand new item. But it's been around for a couple years. Riviera Retreat. I actually used quite a few things from Riviera Retreat, I think, in this build, because Riviera, I mean, like, that's kind of perfect for the vibes of what we're trying to achieve here. And if you're getting bored of watching all of these grapes be placed right now, sped up, imagine how I felt when I did this real time. Imagine how long that took me to do when I was slowly, individually placing every single one of those. Honestly, these vineyards are kind of like a sore spot for me because, and I shouldn't say this too loud because I don't want the game to hear me, but I actually haven't had much trouble with terrain paint recently, but over the years I've had a lot of trouble with terrain paint, especially with terrain paint deleting itself. And one of the most memorable in a bad way times that I had the terrain paint delete itself, I was trying to make a vineyard just like this. So imagine this is a huge lot. I've got all of these rows of grapes. I had gone through and I placed terrain paint underneath every single row of the grapes, and then all of the terrain paint deleted itself. So I spent so long doing this like detailed terrain paint, and it just up and disappeared. Granted, that was a different vineyard on a different day. It did not happen to me here. And the reason it didn't, I think, is because I've been a lot more careful lately with refusing to do terrain paint until like the very last second. Because if I don't do it until the end, then it can't delete itself on me. So at the very end, we'll put some terrain paint rows of dirt underneath all of the plants, but I just don't have that yet because I don't trust the game to let it stay. And this took me a few days to build. Most often when the terrain paint deletes itself, I find it's when I reload the lot. So like if my game crashes or if I close it for the day and come back the next day to keep building, oftentimes when I reopen it, that's when the terrain paint will have been gone. So I was just trying to avoid that for today. And now we're starting to think about the shape of the building. The building itself is actually a very simple shape. In fact, it's kind of a weird shape, I would say. And that's what I liked about it. And you can also see I've got that nice little courtyard in the back. We're gonna have some outdoor dining tables over there. I used the fence, the debug fence from Enchanted by Nature to put around it, because I like the stone accents. We've got Wedding Stories windows kind of put around the whole front here. I added some little balconies and stuff on them to make them look a little bit nicer. I sort of liked that it was a little bit, I was gonna call it lopsided, that's weird, but it is a little bit lopsided and it's kind of asymmetrical. I think that's cool for a build like this. I also like how it looks a little bit older with like the older looking Jungle Adventure roof on the top. I had a lot of good ideas, I think, in the beginning, and then I realized I did not have a plan for the front door. So that took me a second to figure out too. I was like, oh no, how are they gonna get into this building? But we get there in the end. It worked out in the end. It's gonna be on that front flat bit that we have nothing on right now. I just tried out a few different things. I was looking at floral gazebos and trying out to see if that would look okay. I was trying to have just like some flat parts. It's also obviously not directly in line with the rest of the entrance to the lot because I wanted it to be a little bit more curvy and like more natural looking. In my mind, this building has been here for a really long time. I wanted it to look like it's old and they've been slowly like adding to it and changing it and stuff. I didn't want it to look like some brand new, perfectly symmetrical place because I don't think that's realistic for it. But you can kind of see that coming together a little bit better now with the front entrance. I just had a hard time figuring out what I wanted to do on the top. I was thinking about doing like columns. I was thinking about doing sort of like a spandrel thing, or maybe like using fences to make it look like a pergola. I went back and forth a lot on a bunch of different options, but it ends up being kind of simple and flat, I guess was the final decision. In hindsight, I probably should have planned ahead a little bit more for something as important as the front door. Like you'd think I would have thought about that sooner, but I didn't. I also had a really hard time with the color of the wood. I think that was what was holding me back the most, is I did not like the color of like any of the wood pieces, but what I used there is just a base game fence, and I feel like that one matches enough with the rest of it, so it ended up being okay. Then I was trying to put plants up there. I didn't really super like how any of those looked, but I tried my best. Those are the plants from Island Living, and they've got that pretty purple color, which that actually matches the pergola that we have in the back. Funnily enough, the one in the back is just from Wedding Stories, and it's got the same plants as Island Living, because they love to repeat plants these days. They aren't the exact same, but they're like close enough. And then I started trying to put some ivy up the sides of the building, and I think I was being a little bit too picky, because I didn't super love how it looked because it was a different shade of purple from the other flowers. And then I had to be like, Kayla, it's a flower. They're never the exact right shade. Like that's not how life works. Hindsight is 2020, because I look back on this and I'm like, I can't believe I was so stressed about that. It's actually not a big deal. It's not deep. But at the time I was like, oh my God, the colors aren't the same. And I was really having a hard time with it. Looking at it now, it's cute and it's fine. And there's a different shade of purple with the grapes anyway, so there's already more than one. But this is me going back in and adding some extra low-lying plants just so we can start filling in some more flowers. And what we're gonna do is start with this like grassy color, and then I layer in some lavender and like some various purple plants on top. That's always my advice with landscaping. I am by no means an expert, but this is kind of just how I do it. I start with the lowest thing and then I kind of add in bigger stuff as we go. And I usually put down just one plant everywhere and then get the next plant, put that everywhere, and kind of like fill it in that way instead of doing one little spot at a time. I don't know if that makes sense. That's mostly just because of debug though, because debug is kind of annoying to scroll back through. So if I'm gonna use a debug plant, I'm gonna use that plant everywhere, so I don't need to go back and get it again. I don't really use any mods, so I don't have like better build buy or things that I can like grab it with. You can't eyedropper tool the debug plants, so I make do the best that I can. And while we're sat here just trying to finish a little bit more of the landscaping, I feel like now is a good time for a life update. I tend to just drop these into my speed builds usually, so let's do one now. You might have seen that I went like 4 days without uploading on YouTube last week, which is new for me. I have never in my life ever done that before. I've been kind of having a hard time lately emotionally, but this week I feel like I've been doing a little bit better. I'm not doing better, but a little bit better. It's been a slightly less hard week. So that's a pro, that's an improvement. Without getting too deep into it, long story short, 2 of my family's dogs died last week, which really, really sucks. I know I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's actually a nightmare. They were both really old. It's just unfortunate that like, you know, it happened all at once. And grief is just really horrible and hard. I've had a really hard year just in general, a lot of loss in my family the past year or so. And I feel like this happening has like unlocked a lot of, I don't know, grieving, I guess, for other things too. Like it's kind of like compounding a little bit, and that's why I've sort of been going through it. Kind of like take it day by day. Yesterday for me in real life, I couldn't record it all because I cried all day. So that's interesting. I'm trying to sort of work my way through that part too. But there have been some positives. For example, on Wednesday, I went pottery painting. That was really fun. I painted myself 2 Christmas plates while I was there. I'm gonna pick those up soon, which I'm kind of excited about. Put up my Christmas tree. So I've decorated for Christmas downstairs and outside. I was the first person on my street to put up Christmas lights outside. But I needed that. I needed to feel something. So I put up all my Christmas stuff. Also, we've been spending for like, honestly, it's been like months. It took them a really long time, but we got these built-in bookshelves put in a room that we have downstairs. It's like the room off the kitchen. I think it's supposed to be an office, but this whole time I really haven't put anything in it except for like the cat stuff. I had like one of the litter boxes was in there. We had just like stuff in there. I kind of called it the cat room this whole time, but ever since we first moved in, I was like, one day I'm gonna put built-in bookshelves in this room. We finally got it done and they finished, and they're like gone finished properly. So I put all of my furniture back in the room. So I put like the rug back finally, the cat tree is back in there because I moved the cat tree out because the cats wouldn't want to hang out in there when they were like putting the built-ins, and we got like wallpaper put in too. So I moved all of that stuff out. I put it all back yesterday. So now everything is back. The room is like done, fully finished. I'm really excited about that. I'll actually, you know what? Pause for a second. I'll put a couple of photos here in the video so that you can see them. This is what the bookshelves look like. I just got this new couch. This was delivered today. So I have this couch in there too. And on the other side, I have just a shelf that has our records on it. I have not put our speakers back for the record player, but that's kind of everything. But that is like a dream come true to me. I am so excited about it. It's like, honestly, it's carrying me through right now. I've been looking forward to it so much, and like having it done, I walk past it and I just like, it makes me so happy every time I see it. So anyway, I'm really excited about that. That's good. I wanted to make sure I mentioned some positive things in this video. So that could be a fun game too. If you've got anything good going on in your life, doesn't have to be big. Maybe you like baked cookies yesterday, or you read a good book, or you saw like a TV show you like, I don't know. If you've got something good going on in your life right now, let us know in the comments. Let's try and like share some happy things. But anyway, back to the build for a second. I finished the floor plan now, and we're like speeding through doing some of the furnishing. I'm gonna try to explain to you what I've done. And I know it's quick, but at the very end, I'll like walk you through a tour that's more real time and like easy to see. So the upstairs space has the kitchen. This is gonna have like the full kitchen that you need to use for a restaurant. It being upstairs is a little bit inconvenient for gameplay because it does mean the employees have to walk up and down with the food, but I think it gives some extra room for chaos because maybe they'll drop it on their longer walk. But also it just sort of tucked away a little bit better up there. So I've got the kitchen, I have kind of like a room for the employees to put their dishes and stuff. And I also have a huge nectar rack on that back wall of the hallway because the roof was clipping into the room. It's because I used a really thick roof trim, and then I have like the open staircase, but I didn't want it to be clipping. So I covered it up with nectar racks, but I think it makes sense anyway to have nectar racks because it is a winery, right? So I use those, and now I'm starting to put some tables in downstairs. The downstairs area is split up sort of like a little front entryway by the front door. There's kind of like a bar area off to one side, and then we have a huge dining room in the main big area. Plus, there's like a lounge stage spot in the way back. So I put a little bit of music up there. When I was building this, I was making it so it was functional as both a lounge and a restaurant because I feel like those things are kind of interchangeable anyway. Like I wasn't having to add too many extra things. I was gonna put most of this stuff anyway. And then if you're having issues with dine out not working, you could just swap it to a lounge and it will function fine. That was my main reasoning behind it. I want it to be a restaurant, but like just in case it can't be, you can make it a lounge instead. So it's got all the lounge stuff too. What I just did just then was sort of like place down a rough outline of most of the furniture. We didn't really finish that room, but I kind of just like put all the stuff in it, and we'll come back later in the video and we're gonna put all the decor in too. It just kind of helps me to put down furniture almost as like spacers, because I wanted to make sure I could fit enough tables and like, do I like this chair color? You know, so I put all of that in, and then we'll add to it a little bit more afterward. This is the bar space, and I had a really hard time picking out what bar I wanted because I knew that I wanted it to be wooden and I knew that I wanted it to be kind of fancy, but I was having a really hard time specifically with like what furniture to put around the bar. I was trying out different couches, I tried like bookshelves, I tried putting tables in this room. It's just kind of an awkward shaped room with the size of the bar. If it was like one tile bigger, it would have been easier. But I just had a little bit too little space. But what I did instead was put this really fancy like chase lounge there. I have some lights, and there's just kind of like some cute places to sit around it. I also used a few things from the Cozy Bistro kit in here, like all of the wine bottles you see hanging from the ceiling in this room, that's Cozy Bistro kit. There's just like some decorative wine bottles from that kit too that I used around. I was basically trying to use anything that had something that looked like wine. I put that pretty much everywhere. Oh, and also in this corner, that's a buffet table. You don't really need a buffet table at a restaurant, but I figured because this place also could be a lounge, you might want to be able to have food. So I put a buffet table in too, because then you could just like stock it really quickly and feed yourself if you needed to. But again, this is not a wedding venue. So I don't have anything wedding venue related in this space. And that was like intentionally left out. It would make for a super nice wedding venue, but I just didn't want to waste space with wedding stuff. So I kind of did everything but basically when I was decorating it. This next room in the basement is kind of like the actual winery part. So in my mind, this is a functional vineyard, right? They're growing all the grapes, they're producing all this nectar. So there's like a really cool bar back from Horse Ranch. I've got a few of the nectar making stations. I've got like barrels and some things on display. I also put the supply closet down there so that you could woohoo in there if you wanted to when you came to visit. And I think I ended up adding one extra room just off that back wall, and I put all of the nectar storage in there. So it takes a second for me to figure out the floor plan, but we added to it to make the room a little bit bigger. If you wanted to, you could also just come here and use this and like make nectar with your Sims. I really liked this room because it reminded me of The Sims 3. Like this whole place, honestly, like the building itself, specifically the basement, it reminds me of The Sims 3 World Adventures because that's when they first had nectar making in the game. Or at least it's when I first had nectar making in the game. I didn't really play Sims 2. I started with The Sims 3. And I have a lot of fond memories of making nectar in France because they had like literally France in The Sims 3 World Adventures. I loved it. I thought it was so cool. And this kind of has that energy. So that's what I was trying to go for. It's just like the basement of France in The Sims 3. And there's a couple of like bar height tables down there too. I figured in real life they might have like some specialty tastings that happen down there. So it's like just an extra little added bonus activity that you could do if you wanted. I also cut this out from the video, but I furnished the bathrooms. There's 2 bathrooms downstairs and there may or may not be one upstairs. I don't remember. I don't think there is, but there's at least 2 bathrooms in this lot, probably not more than that. We're kind of going back into the main floor now though to start decorating it a little bit better. It doesn't look like it, but I had a really hard time figuring out the color scheme of this room, especially the curtains and stuff. I knew that I wanted to have that stage, but oh my goodness, I tried like every single curtain in the game. I wanted to have purple, like a deep purple, because I kind of like that like wine tone color, but the purples all look so bad. There's like a really vibrant purple full curtain. Like there's just so many ones that I really didn't like the look of them, but I used these instead. These are actually Enchanted by Nature and they have kind of like a blue with little purple accents to it. So I put those around the inside and then we have plain white curtains behind the stage. Eventually we're going to add in some purple accent walls in a few places. We have a lot more like wood colors added in too. I tried to throw in some like more barrels and things upstairs just to have like that wine sort of vibe. There's also some signs that have wine bottles on them, so I used a few of those. Thankfully, Horse Ranch has a lot of wine stuff. That worked out. There's also like a wine glass picture from Dine Out, but I can't remember if I used it in here. Because I feel like the wine glass picture from Dine Out is kind of modern, and this place is not modern, like in the slightest. Oh, but what I did do, I put another supply closet. I didn't remember doing that. That's nice. That's good. Another place to woohoo. There's one on more than one floor. Never mind, I just deleted it. I made it into a wine cellar instead. That's cool though. Okay, so what I did there, wow, this is like a wild ride. What I did there is I used the wine fridge display cases from Dine Out, put them in the room, built a wall around it, and then put glass doors in front of it. It looks like those fancy houses in LA that you see YouTubers have, how they have like a wine storage space under their stairs with the glass wall. It looks like that. Okay, that's cool. I forgot I did that. Wow. I never used that item from Dine Out either. It's honestly like I probably count on one hand the number of times I've managed to fit it in somewhere, but I'm glad we tried to do it in here. I'm embarrassed that I forgot I did that, but it's fine. This is a very interesting video. Okay, well, we're just trying to do some more decorating now though. So I'm kind of like rearranging the table tables. I'm trying to fit barrels in some places. I've got some more nectar storage racks inside downstairs. And that's that purple wall finally starting to come in. I think that helps. I think it's nice for it to be darker in here. I actually eventually went back and I changed the lighting to be a little bit darker in here too. And I think that also helped with the room because I feel like it needs kind of like that moody lighting. It needs like that kind of ambiance for it to be nice. Also, I think that the bottles that I have by the stairs are actually technically olive oil bottles, not wine bottles, but let's just pretend, okay, that they're also wine bottles, yeah? Because that helps. It makes it feel more fitting to the room. Although maybe they make olive oil here too, I don't know. They've got some olive trees. Wedding Stories has olive trees in debug and they're kind of just around Tartosa, so I put a couple of them on this lot. And here we are changing the lighting a little bit. I had a hard time with this too because I wanted to make the lighting darker by the stage, but then the curtains all looked like different colors. Because you know when you have things that tile in the game, like maybe it's upper cabinets, maybe it's like the Dream Home Decorator stuff, anything that tiles, it's so frustrating to me when the lighting is different on them. And so I wanted to make it dark, but then like all of the curtains looked like separate curtains because of it. So I was really going back and forth trying to decide what I wanted out of that. I ended up making it darker in most of the other places, but not on the stage. That's kind of how I worked around it. I even tried these like fancy stage lights, and then it made all of them look like completely separate curtains. It was even worse. Like it was just a disaster trying to make this work. The only way I could fix it was to like flood the place with light and have 3 of those saucer lights, because then I'm like almost overexposing it and making sure there's no room for it to have any different lighting colors. I also used that piano from Wedding Stories. I think that piano is so beautiful with like the pretty cutouts on the top and then the lights that are attached to it. It's, I think, the best piano in the game and one of my like favorite just decorative objects. I have a hard time using it sometimes because it's just hard to use the grand pianos in general because they're so big, but when I manage to fit it, it looks so good. It like fits perfectly on that stage too. And then I added a little like busking station from City Living because I kind of wanted it to look like somebody was performing up there. I tried a few things with the different lights and different bits like that, but I settled on just that busking station because it already has like equipment around it basically. This was me trying to put wall lights in there and like hide them inside of the curtains. I feel like that actually helped a lot with the lighting on the stage, but then the rest of it looked really dark. So I was just trying to add in some more things around to balance it out a little bit better, but you can kind of see the vibes I was going for and like the moodiness that I was going for a bit more now. It's all sort of coming together a little bit more nicely. Oh, and one more thing I did, I tried to have a little bit of distinction between the dining room and the area around the stage. They're all just in one big room. It's the same tables, the same chair sets, but the ones by the stage are facing the stage, and they also have candles instead of like the menu and wine glasses on them like the other ones do. So hopefully that helps it make it feel like there's more than one room. It's kind of like a dining room space and then a lounge space, hopefully, because that's kind of what I was going for. I also used that sign from the Cozy Bistro kit like literally everywhere. I was putting it on so many of the walls, both inside and outside, because it just helped to fill it all in. I found the kitchen kit, the new kitchen clutter kit, has like a wine glass painting. I used that somewhere. Also, I'm just noticing Stanley has an ailment. The test sim that I'm using, the test version of Stanley, is a fairy, and he has an ailment. I think that really dates this video. I think I built this close to when Enchanted by Nature first came out. And you can tell because I was using a fairy Stanley as my test sim. Oh my god. And there's been a whole second expansion pack since then. That's how fast the 2 packs came out. That's how close together they were. I'm gonna check. Oh, I started building this on July 22nd. That makes me feel really embarrassed. It's November. Okay, I thought it was from like September, not July. Wow, okay. Well, I'm finally posting it, right? That's good. We got there in the end. So this part right here, I tried to decorate like kind of a fancy area back by one of the tables. I put some more nectar bottle displays. We have like some hanging ones. There's some old pictures on the wall. I've got some jars of olives hung up there too, because again, maybe they have olives here. I don't know. I also found some like music artwork because I was kind of trying to channel that lounge business a little bit more. And so I put some music artwork too. There's like a saxophone on the wall from Businesses and Hobbies. I used that because you can come here and like watch performances and stuff. And now we are going back outside to try and do some finishing touches. So I put a few outdoor dining tables on this back patio space. There's also a fire pit. I put an invisible dance floor out here. And this honestly might be a good spot if you wanted to have your Sims wedding here. You could possibly put the wedding arch over in this area, but I didn't want to have like the wedding stuff stuff permanently set up because I figured I would use this more often for just like regular stuff than I would for weddings. And it's easy to throw in a wedding arch occasionally instead of like deleting it and having empty space, right? So all of that to say, I have a few tables and things, and hopefully if you want a wedding venue, you could easily adjust it. I did put some bigger tables out here because most of the ones inside are for like 2, 3, or 4 people. One of them outside has space for 6. Then I put some benches so that you can stargaze if your Sims want to, and I know your Sims want to. They're probably all gonna be full of stargazers. And then I put a fire pit underneath the pergola. I really liked the idea of your Sims coming here and like taking wedding photos underneath that pergola. So I've got some space set up out there. I put a picnic blanket so you could woohoo or like have a little date outside if you wanted to, because this also could be a good spot to propose to a Sim if you wanted. This could be a great engagement spot. And now I'm just trying to get that like kind of curvy, detailed little path put in. I really did struggle with trying to figure out where I wanted to put the path and like how much path there should be, how much of it should be pavement, should there be a fountain. So I did this obviously last because of my terrain paint fears, but I think that this worked out in the end. It's kind of like an off-center fountain that we got there. It doesn't line up with the front door, but it lines up with the front of the patio space, and I think that that's good, hopefully. Hopefully you agree. And then I added a few additional plants everywhere just to kind of fill in some last minute little empty spaces. We've got some dirt terrain paint down, and there is one room upstairs that I cut out and I didn't show you, and you're gonna laugh when I show you what it is in the end because I made a funeral space upstairs. So with that being said, let's jump into the tour and I'll kind of show you around the building and I'll explain what I mean by that. So as a refresher, we built this on the 50 by 40 lot in Tartosa. On my gallery, it's called Tartosa Vineyard, and the preview photo is so ugly. There's like this giant tree right in the middle of it. It does cost $159,000 and it uses so many packs. I'm so sorry. It's really bad. It's also from August 1st, so you have to scroll back just a tiny bit to find it. But this is what it looks like when you first place it. So you can see we've got all of that lovely terrain paint underneath things. I filled in some nice paths. I've got some flowers as you walk up to the front. I think that this angle is so pretty. Like imagine getting proposed to right here. Taking like photos of your Sims family up there. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with all of this, but when you come up forward a little bit more, we have that fountain, there's some places to sit, we have this really pretty pergola area kind of like right in the middle of all of the plants, and this could also be a good spot to put that wedding arch if you wanted to. Although if I were you, I might like, maybe just for a couple of these, I might like rotate a couple of them down and do it like that or something, just for a slightly better view, because they don't look very cute from the side. When you come inside, I've got a couple little menu stands and things out by the front door. You can check in right here and then get seated at one of these tables. So here's kind of an overview of all of the tables and stuff in this room. Actually, here's kind of like a top-down overview of the whole restaurant. So over to the right, this is where we have the bar area. It looks a little bit like this. There's some bookshelves and some places to sit. We've got the cool wine fridge. And then over on this side, we have a couple of bathrooms. Oh, there's a supply closet in one of them. Okay, so you can woohoo in here. But there's 2 toilet rooms and just kind of like a little seating waiting room in the hallway. This area has the stage so you can watch some performances. You can also access the basement from down here, and this is like the nectar cellar down here in the basement. There's another supply closet over here. And then when you go upstairs, kind of just like an open hallway area this way, then we start getting into like the employees only section on this left half with the kitchen and stuff. And then over here, this is the space for the funeral. So there's another buffet table. There's some like seats lined up. This is actually a frame TV, so you could use this to put up like a slideshow of photos of the deceased. We've also got a memorial display. But I put this in because I sort of pictured this room being like a party room when I was building it. I was envisioning like maybe you could have a space for a big table in case you had like your whole family come out to dinner at this restaurant. And then I was like, oh, I guess it could be a wedding room, but that's so boring and so on the nose. So I did the opposite. I made it a funeral room. But you could also have like, I don't know, meetings or something. It's just like a community space at the restaurant. It can be adjusted to whatever kind of party you're trying to throw. And hopefully that is helpful to you. But lastly, I want to show you the restaurant menu because I did put a whole custom one for this. So mostly it's got a bunch of different fancy nectars, but we also have a couple teas and coffees and stuff. Kind of just like some obvious things like sparkling water and lemonade too. And then I made it really, really fancy. So they only sell, for the most part, Italian food, and then also the like specialty dishes from Dine Out. The ones with the black plates are like the fancy artisan dishes from Dine Out. So we have some obvious things like a breadstick, but we also have glacier-infused iceberg lettuce, and like an artisan fish trio, cubed ahi with veggie wasabi matrix. This one is free-range Sixum pit beast. So there's a couple out there things, but also some obvious things like a charcuterie board and like shrimp and soup and stuff. But that is the full restaurant. So hopefully you enjoyed this. I really had fun building it, and I'm really excited about how the finished product turned out. I think it looks really beautiful from the exterior. I am sorry if this video was all over the place. I kind of feel all over the place inside right now. So that's just kind of how we're operating at this current moment. But thank you for putting up with me. Thank you for watching the video. I hope that you had fun. I'm also gonna be live on my Twitch channel tonight if you wanna come hang out. I'm playing a little bit of Animal Crossing later, but tomorrow we're gonna play a game called Town to City. And if you haven't ever seen that before, honestly, if you like The Sims, I think you would really like Town to City. It's a city builder, but it's like cozy and cutesy, and you can decorate everything in so much detail. Like you place down just a building, but then you can decorate the porch of the building and you can add lights and add flowers. Like it's so fun. I think it might be the best game of 2025, and that's a little bit extreme possibly to say, but I've been having so much fun with it. I've also posted some videos. I've got like probably 6 or 7 videos that are like 3 hours long of me playing it already on my second channel called More Simsie. So I'll link that down below for you too in case you want to go and check that out. And I'm gonna catch you all tomorrow, okay? Bye, everybody. I'll be honest, I do not think this was my best voiceover. I feel like I did a bad job today, and I apologize. But you win some, you lose some, and I think maybe today I lost. I did my best, though.